What's up, Taiwan? I'm Erika Liu with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. A veteran U.S. senator has issued a stark warning about the risks of a Chinese takeover of Taiwan, saying the country is vital to America's national security. Republican Wicker of Mississippi wrote the warning in a weekly report published on his website. He said that if China took Taiwan, it would cause a global economic depression and undermine the defenses keeping the U.S. safe from China's military. He added that if China were to take control of Taiwan's vast chip industry, it could affect thousands of jobs in his home state. Wicker and fellow Senator Deb Fischer visited Taiwan last month, meeting with President Lai Ching-te and other top officials. Taiwan's Coast Guard has seized a Chinese ship sailing in restricted waters near the outlying islands of Penghu and detained its crew. The Coast Guard detected the fishing vessel operating close to Taiwan on Friday. Authorities say the ship's name had been painted over and that when they approached the boat, it attempted to escape. The crew refused to cooperate with the Coast Guard, and Taiwanese officials forcibly boarded the vessel. On board, the Coast Guard found 1 ton of fish, which it discarded back into the sea. China's military has criticized the passage of an Australian and a Canadian warship through the Taiwan Strait, accusing the two countries of, quote, troublemaking and provocation. Neither the Canadian nor the Australian armed forces have responded directly to China's statement. A spokesperson for the Canadian government says the ship was part of the country's peacekeeping mission in the Indo-Pacific. Australia has recently strengthened defense ties with countries like Japan and the UK as China ramps up regional pressure. Beijing claims both Taiwan and the Strait as part of its territory. Taiwan celebrated its world champion Little League team on Sunday with a parade through Taipei.
我们基层棒球在永续发展，就这个冠军，让我们台湾的棒球更加蓬勃发展。
The school team from Taipei's Dongyuan Elementary School represented the entire Asia-Pacific region at this year's Little League World Series in Williamsport, Pennsylvania last month. The young Sluggers won the entire tournament after beating a team from Nevada 7-0 in the finals. It marks Taiwan's first win at the event since 1996. Hengchun Township in southern Taiwan is celebrating 150 years since its founding. While the occasion saw more run-of-the-mill fanfare-like music and fireworks, the main event was a pole climbing competition, a proud and historic Taiwanese tradition. Leslie Liao has more.
How would you celebrate the 150th anniversary of your city's founding? Well, if you're Hengchun in southern Taiwan, you hold a concert and a contest where competitors race to the top of greasy poles. It's a traditional activity called Qianggu, which has been around since the Qing dynasty, and it's a key part of Hengchun's annual celebrations.
参加非常非常有意义的，是列入咱台湾宗教百景哦。台湾规个宗教百景的内底，咱的恒春的四股坪活动。目标往我们2025恒春古城国际四股棚前进哦，冲啊！
This year, 17 teams signed up to make the slippery ascent. Thousands of people watched the spectacle held on a massive makeshift platform. Participants had to climb one of 36 poles, each 23 meters tall. In the end, a team from a funeral service company won the event, taking roughly 7 minutes to make it to the top. They got to take home a grand prize of around $11,000 US. Climbing greasy poles may not be the most conventional way of celebrating a town's birthday, but in this southern Taiwanese city, it's a cherished tradition, one that's still going strong after more than a century. Howard Zhang and Leslie Liao for TaiwanPlus.
Animal rights groups want to ban meerkats as pets, following new rules from the country's Animal Welfare Department that would require owners of some exotic animals to register them. Our reporter Sandy Chi explains why.
Meet meerkat Cui Hua. He's an important member of the family for Chen Yiwen, who has been caring for him for about a year, showering him with his buddy Cui Yu with endless hugs, scrubs, and snacks.
当初会想养狐獴，是因为想说，因为自己本身就在 养爬虫，然后它们的食性很像，都是吃虫的。然后想说，因为毕竟爬虫类真的跟人的互动比较少，想说，毕竟它是哺乳类，你看这么可爱。
Chen made this decision after months of research to better understand the species.
一开始我也想说，就一只毛茸茸的小动物，应该可能跟猫狗，他们都说跟猫狗很像啊，但其实养起来根本完全不一样。对，因为你说它像狗一样黏人没有错，但它的食性又比较像猫，它偏肉食，它其实偏肉，但准确来说它是吃虫大过于吃肉。
But not everyone believes meerkats are suitable pets. In September, animal rights groups in Taiwan issued a statement urging the government to ban keeping meerkats as pets. The call came after authorities placed the animals on a grey list in August, meaning they could be legally owned once regulations on breeding, sales, and ownership are established.
它的自然栖地是在非洲南部，就是草原、大草原跟沙漠的这样的一种自然栖地环境。那他们过去，因为他们模样很可爱，眼睛很大，然后很小，所以人们就觉得说它似乎很好饲养。那所以它就在宠物市场里面就开始流行起来。可是我们来看，就是说它基本上，它纵使被带进来人为饲养的环境里头，它还是存有它野生动物的非常非常多习性。比方说，这个动物它很重要的是，它是具有高度社群的一个动物，所以它们大概在野外，它们大概都是以25到30只以上一个这样的族群为一个单位。
The groups warn the animals could harm local ecosystems, similar to how green iguanas have been devastating southern Taiwan after being introduced as pets here in the early 2000s. With many concerns over this exotic pet species, the group suggests the government pursue a phased ban, with registration and oversight for current owners, stronger quarantine controls, and long-term public education. There are currently over 1,000 known pet meerkats in Taiwan.
Meerkats are just one of the many exotic pets here in Taiwan. And with rising awareness for animal rights, the government will continue to hammer out new rules to find the best solution for these animals and their humans. Luffy Li, PG Zhuang, and Sanny Chi in Ilan for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan has become a thriving center for the export of orchid flowers. John Rentriez takes a look at the country's orchid industry and how it got so big.
Taiwan is one of the world's leading exporters of orchid flowers. In greenhouses like this one, flowers destined for markets around the world grow under careful heat, humidity, and lighting conditions. When ready, these flowers are snipped off, packaged, and readied for shipment. For the last 2 to 3 decades, Taiwan has invested heavily in seed sources, tissue culture, and production technologies. In 2023, orchid exports brought in close to $200 million. One reason these flowers sell so well is that they're hardy.
切花就是把这丛的花夹掉了，伊就是顶悬安尼尔，伊无摘啊出去，伊纯粹就是这支花出口安尼尔。乌蝶兰的切花，伊唔是单咱买倒来插哩，伊种内底有伊的寿命足长了。另外一个就是伊的运输，伊嘛会当忍耐一个足长的时间。所以咱种乌蝶兰的切花嘛是咱台湾离乌蝶这个部分的明日之星。
Around 80 countries buy these flowers, but along with Japan, it is the United States that's become the chief market and the chief reason for the industry's rise. Before 2008, the U.S. market was tough to crack due to strict biosecurity rules.
进前要去销去美国，足麻烦的。你就爱把兰花种伫迄落水草内底，你来水草摕掉，爱来吹好干，各方面的爱2-3工，才可以来用控温送去美国。 咱若法度直接炸水草加迄盆送去美国，你足方便的。
But 2004 was the year that restrictions changed. Taiwan became the only country permitted to send moss and pots to the U.S. along with the flowers. It's certainly still not easy to sell abroad. Greenhouses must still be up to strict U.S. standards. And shipments have to be totally free of bugs, ferns, or other foreign materials. Still, the easing of rules in 2004 saw orchid exports to the U.S. jump 5-fold in the decade that followed. One reason for Taiwanese orchid success is technical and painstaking. Breeders clone the best flowers. In some cases, they can squeeze about 800 to 1,000 identical copies of the exact flower customers want, about as far as you can go without getting mutations that customers do not want. As growers will tell you, it all requires a lot of patience.
组织培养要3-4年，所以我们的时间很长啊。要大量生产的时候要3年到4年，所以一棵花它能够到市场的话，至少要经过7年的历练。
Taiwan's orchids do have competition. Growers are impressed with Dutch products, and China's orchid industry, while still some years behind Taiwan, is also catching up. There's also the issue of U.S. tariffs and what they'll mean for the industry. But growers in Taiwan have grown used to working with the government and research institutions, and they're confident that with enough support, Taiwan will remain the orchid kingdom. Patrick Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
South Korea's president has ordered a, quote, all-out effort to support its citizens and investors in the U.S. after 300 Korean workers were arrested at a Hyundai battery plant in Georgia. That effort includes potentially sending the country's top diplomat to Washington. Irene Lin has more.
Workers for Hyundai stand in line for full-body searches in hand and ankle cuffs. In all, 475 people were arrested in an immigration raid at the South Korean carmaker's flagship battery plant under construction in the U.S. state of Georgia. The raid on Thursday was the largest single-site operation in the U.S. Homeland Security Department's 23-year history, part of the Trump administration's crackdown on immigrants. Over 300 of the detained are South Korean citizens who came to work on the plant. U.S. security officials say they suspect the workers of entering the country illegally or overstaying their visas.
Together, we are sending a clear and unequivocal message that those who exploit our workforce, undermine our economy, and violate federal laws will be held accountable.
Hyundai says none of the people who were arrested are company employees, but indicated that they may have been contractors or subcontractors. The South Korean government has been on high alert. After an emergency meeting on Saturday, the country says it's ready to hold talks with Washington to resolve the issue.
In the course of U.S. law enforcement, the rights of our people and the economic activities of South Korean investors in the U.S. must not be unjustly infringed upon. President Lee Jae-myung also ordered our embassy in the U.S. and the Consulate General in Atlanta to make all-out efforts to resolve this matter swiftly.
Hyundai's Georgia plant, what officials call the state's largest economic development project, is one of South Korea's current or pledged investments in the U.S. automobile industry. The country has been in negotiations with the U.S. to lower the tariff rate on cars from the current 25% to 15%. In return, South Korea would invest $350 billion in the United States, though talks have hit a snag recently. South Korea also faces imminent pressure from competitor Japan, another major auto exporter, which has shaken hands with the U.S. on a 15% tariff rate for imports of its cars. Now, with hundreds of South Korean citizens detained in the U.S., any hope of moving forward on the stalled trade deal may be far off. Ethan Chen and Irene Lin for TaiwanPlus.
South Korea says it has negotiated the release of hundreds of its workers rounded up in the raid and will send a chartered plane to the U.S. to bring them home. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, check out these Magellanic penguins released back into the wild in Chile after rehabilitation. I'm Erika Liu. Take care and see you next time.